This is part 2 of chapter 9.2, making inferences about two means independent samples. We're referencing our book Elementary Statistics by Maria Chirola. And in this part, we'll look how to construct a confidence interval estimate of the difference between the two independent population means. We will use the same example that we used before, the same values. If you haven't entered the values in your graphing calculator or the StatCrunch, whichever technology you use, please do list 1 for female population, list 2 for male population. We use 0.05 significance level to test the claim that the two samples are from populations with the same mean. When we construct a confidence interval, we evaluate the difference between two population means, mu1 and mu2, and the interval will show us where the difference is located. If the difference is negative, if mu1 minus mu2 is negative or less than 0, that will mean that mu1 is smaller than mu2 is greater. If mu1 minus mu2 is positive, that will mean that mu1 is greater than mu2. If mu1 minus mu2 is equal to 0, or the interval includes 0, we can make conclusion that mu1 is approximately equal to mu2, which means there is not a big difference between the two populations. How do we know that we need to construct a 95% confidence interval? Well, remember, our alpha was 0.05 and our test is two-tailed test. Therefore, confidence interval is within these limits, 0.95. If it was a one-tailed test, with the alpha, let's say the same, 0.05, one-tailed test, then we would have our alpha right here, 0.05. We'll need to multiply it by 2, 0.05 times 2 would be 0.1, and then subtract from 1. 1 minus 0.10 will give us 0.90. So that if it was the one-tailed test. Okay, now let's go back to our problem. And we're going to use the graphing calculator first. Go to Stat, Test, go down to two-sample t interval, click Enter. Make sure that you enter the data because we have a choice. Either use data values or use stats. We're going to use data from list 1 and list 2. Leave the frequency the same. Confidence level 0.95. In this case, go to Calculate and write down the interval. Negative 0.528. I'm going to round it to 3 decimals. To 0.275. Look at the interval. Our interval includes 0. Therefore, if it includes 0, we make conclusion then the mean from the first population is equal or almost equal of the mean from the second population. Therefore, there is not much difference between the two population means. To interpret this confidence interval, we say we are 90% confident because remember, we had a 95 confidence interval, so we are 95% confident. Then the limits of negative 0.53 rounded to 2 decimals and 0.27 rounded to 2 decimals actually do contain a difference between the two population means. And because those limits contain 0, this interval suggests that there is not significant difference between the mean course evaluation scores for female professors and the mean course evaluation scores for male professors. Now let's do it on StatCrunch. After you enter the values in the StatCrunch, you go to Stat, T-Stats, to Sample, with Data, select column 1, var 1, column 2, var 2, choose confidence interval for mu1 minus mu2, confidence level 0.95, compute, and as you can see, we get the same interval, left limit negative 0.528 or 53 rounded to 2 decimals, and 0.275 rounded to 3 decimals or 0.27 to 2 decimals. When you enter the values in MyMathLab assignment, make sure that you read what decimals you need to round it up to. Hope that was helpful.